My son has not taken a nap since he was 9 months old. That's not an exaggeration. 9 months old. For years, bedtime in our house was 7, sometimes 8 o'clock. Pajamas on, teeth brushed, lights out, everything the book said. And then he would lie in that bed, wide awake, until 1, 2, sometimes 3 in the morning. Not scared, not calling out, not looking for me. Some nights chattering softly to himself in the dark, other nights bouncing off the walls. Either way, wide awake, just on. I'm a physician. I have sat with parents and talked them through their children's sleep for over 20 years. And in my own dark hallway, at midnight, I had nothing. I thought I was doing something wrong. For a while, I thought he was doing something wrong. We were both innocent. The problem wasn't the routine, and it wasn't his will. It was a clock. Every parent of a wired-at-night kid gets told they need a better routine, less screen time, a firmer hand, a warmer bath. That if your child is awake at midnight, some adult somewhere has failed to be consistent. But you cannot discipline a clock. And in kids with ADHD, the clock, the literal biological timer that decides when the body gets sleepy, is set later, measurably later. I've been the doctor across the desk lecturing a tired parent about sleep hygiene. And I've been the mom on the hallway floor at 1 a.m., realizing sleep hygiene was never going to be enough. Admitting that meant admitting I'd been wrong. In this video, I'll talk about why the ADHD body clock runs late and what that actually means, why melatonin is not the sleeping pill you think it is, and how all of us start by using it wrong, including me, the 3 rogues of the night that steal your child's sleep. I'll even talk about what all the grifters on your phone keep trying to sell you at midnight, preying on your exhaustion. And then I'll direct you to one daytime lever that actually fixes the night. In the last video, we covered the 30% rule. Kids with ADHD run about 30% behind their age in the control center of the brain, the part that starts, stops, waits, and holds a plan. If you haven't seen that one, it's linked below. It's where this whole clock comes from. The part we did not mention that will surprise you is that the same control center runs the internal body clock. Deep in the brain, there's a timer that decides when you get sleepy. It works by releasing a hormone called melatonin. Think of melatonin as a signal, not a sedative. Picture it as a quiet voice that says, "Night is coming. Start powering down." In most people, that voice speaks up a couple of hours before bed. In kids with ADHD, it speaks up much later. On average, in younger kids, about 45 minutes later than other children, and in teenagers and adults, closer to 90 minutes later. Picture your 12-year-old at 9 p.m. The clock on the wall says, hey, it's nearly bedtime. But the clock in his brain is set 45 to 90 minutes behind, and it has not given that signal yet. Nothing in his body is telling him to wind down, because biologically for him, it's still early evening. You are not fighting a stubborn child. You are asking a wide-awake brain to sleep on a clock that's running at a different time. This is literally the 30% gap again, just after dark. His body is doing exactly what his development says it should. It's just doing it an hour or so behind the birthday number. So, this is a delayed clock. It's not a discipline problem, it's a timing problem. And once I understood that, everything I'd been doing at bedtime suddenly made sense, because I'd been treating the wrong problem. Which brings me to the bottle in the cupboard that half of you already have. You are almost certainly using it the wrong way, because I was too. When our pediatrician first mentioned melatonin, I did what most parents do. I gave him a dose at bedtime, right there at lights out, like a sleeping pill. It barely worked, and his nightmares were worse that night. I used the dose printed on the bottle. What had I done to my kid? Right then, I decided melatonin did not work for my kid. Most other parents stop right there too. So what do we have wrong? Melatonin is not a sleeping pill. It doesn't knock a child out. Given at bedtime, you're shouting, "Night is coming," at a brain that can already see it's dark. We've added almost nothing. Melatonin is the clock setter, the literal signal. The signal does not have to be loud. It only has to be present. It needs to be given as a small dose. We're talking a fraction of what's in most bottles, and a few hours before you want the child to sleep. Because melatonin does something a bedtime dose can't. It tells the clock to move earlier. Small dose, earlier, not at bedtime. That was the difference between a night of dread and a night of success. The dose, the timing, exactly how many hours ahead. That is a conversation for your own child's doctor, because it depends on your kid, and I am not going to hand you numbers over the internet. But I will tell you what happened in our house. The dose that finally worked was so small that the pediatrician actually scoffed when I told him. I gave my son a quarter of the lowest tablet you can buy, about 2 hours before our planned bedtime. No nightmares, and he slept. We stopped using it as a hammer at lights out and started using it as a whisper earlier in the evening. And 3 in the morning nights, the ones I thought were permanent, they ended. I honestly didn't believe it the first time it happened. I woke at 3 a.m., panicked, and I ran to my son's room to check that he was breathing. Literally, melatonin changed our lives. Ours became a different house. Melatonin did not fix his ADHD. Let me be clear about that. It doesn't touch the daytime, the focus, the starting, the socks that go missing. It did move the clock. That's all it does. But when the clock is the thing that is broken, moving it is everything. So, the clock is late and the signal is a whisper, not a hammer. But even with the timing right, some kids still can't get to sleep. And it's usually one of the 3 quieter things nobody warned you about. Rogue number 1 lives in the legs. Restless legs, that crawling, can't hold still feeling, shows up in about half the people with ADHD. A child often can't name it. He just can't get comfortable. Kicks the covers off, gets up again and again. It's frequently tied to low iron stores. A simple blood test, ferritin, can tell you. In Canada, that's 1 conversation with your family doctor and 1 requisition. Definitely worth asking since the fix is simple and directed. Rogue number 2 is one you already suspect. Screens. But not for the reason you think. It's not only that the game is exciting, it's the light. Bright light, late in the evening, hits the delayed clock and shoves it even later. It's the exact opposite of the melatonin whisper. You're telling the timer that the sun is still up. For the brain whose clock is already running behind, a bright screen at 9 p.m. is not a distraction. It's sabotage, a physical push in the wrong direction. Rogue number 3 is one parents almost never connect to bedtime: the medication. A stimulant dose taken too late in the day can still be working at 9 p.m. My son was sensitive to the longer-acting methylphenidate formulations, and these impacted his sleep greatly. Remember, medication may be quietly holding the door open on a brain you're trying to power down. I'm not telling you to change a dose. Please do not, especially not off a video. But if bedtime is a battle, the timing of the daytime medication is a conversation worth having with your prescriber. The night could get better when you fix the day. So legs, light, and the medication. 3 rogues, all quiet, all fixable, none of them about your child's character. If you're anything like I was, you've probably done something else too. Or the algorithms have found you. You've been searching, why won't my child sleep at 11 at night? And your phone already knows. For the next 2 weeks, that phone is going to sell you the solution. Every night, repeatedly, you will see the magical weighted blanket, the calming wrap, another godforsaken jar of gummies, with a sleeping child on the label, touted as a natural cure-all. You're not imagining it. You are the most targeted customer on the internet, a frightened parent with a credit card, awake at midnight. So let me stand between you and the ads for a minute. Doctor and mom. Here's what the evidence actually says, because some of it is real, but most of it is selling your exhaustion. Weighted blankets first, because these are the ones with real research behind them. A trial, 94 children with ADHD, sleep measured with a monitor, found the weighted blanket helped. Modestly. The children slept a little longer, woke a little less through the night, and the effect was biggest in the 11 to 14 age group with the inattentive type. But notice what it did not do. It did not help them fall asleep any faster. And I always want to put the evidence in perspective. This was one small randomized trial. In medicine and science, the sample size and selection are heavily weighed. So a weighted blanket is a reasonable thing to try for staying asleep, but not for the wired at bedtime problem. And you do not need the $200 blanket. The rule of thumb is roughly 10% of your child's body weight, and a cheaper blanket at the right weight does the very same job as the expensive one. Don't just buy it and hope. Give it 2 weeks of consistent use at the same time each night and see if it actually changes anything by morning. In the next tier, we have the compression wraps, the calm carriers, the squeeze and soothe products filling your feed. The idea underneath them is real. Deep, steady pressure does settle some nervous systems. It's why a firm hug calms a child and a light tickle winds them up. Understand, though, that the idea is real is not the same as the product is proven. The studies behind these deep pressure gadgets are small, mostly done in autism, and they do not show the sleep miracle the ads promise. Some children genuinely find them soothing, others don't notice a thing. My kid stayed up longer because it was too hot for him. So if one soothes your child, lovely, use it, but go in clear-eyed. It might settle him, it will not reset his clock, and no wrap is worth going without groceries to afford. And now the gummies. This is the one I need you to actually hear loud and clear. The Melatonin gummy is the single most popular kids' sleep product on the shelf. And it is the least trustworthy, bordering on dangerous thing in this whole video. When researchers tested 25 of them, 22 were mislabeled. The real amount of melatonin ranged from about 3/4 of what the label claimed to more than 3 times what it claimed. It sometimes contained CBD that was never mentioned on the packaging. And it gets worse. A children's magnesium gummy sold as a gentle little mineral was pulled by regulators for containing a hidden dose of melatonin the label never named. Accidental melatonin poisonings in children have risen more than 500% in 1 decade. A gummy tastes like a sweet. A child does not stop at 1. Here's the honest ranking from the doctor and mom who has stood in that hallway. The thing most likely to help, the clock signal, is the thing the gummy delivers most carelessly. If your doctor agrees melatonin is right for your child, ask about a measured tablet or a liquid you can actually dose. Kept up high where a child can't reach. Not a jar of candy on the nightstand. The weighted blanket may be worth a try. Cheap is fine. The squeeze products, harmless if he likes them, but not a cure. The jar of sleep your phone keeps pushing you at midnight, it is selling to how tired you are, not to your child's biology. If your head is spinning, trying to hold all of this, when to dim the lights, when the clock signal goes in, when the screens go off, I made you a 1-pager for it. It's a free printable on the site called the Sleep Window. You put your child's target sleep time and it works backwards. When to lower the lights, when the small early dose goes in, if your doctors agree to it. And when the screens are done, one page on the fridge, link below. But the biggest lever of all, the one that moves the clock more than any blanket, any wrap, anything you can do after dark, isn't at night at all. It's the first 10 minutes of the morning. It's the part that feels backwards. The single most powerful thing you can do for the delayed body clock happens at wake up. Light, real bright morning light, is the master reset. It hits the brain and pulls the whole clock earlier, including tonight's melatonin signal. Let that morning light in, and tonight's sleepy signal comes earlier. This fix isn't only lights out earlier, it's lights in sooner. Open the curtains the moment he's up. Breakfast by the brightest window in the house. On a dark Canadian winter morning, when the sun isn't up before the school bus, this is where a bright daylight lamp earns its place at the table. And there's real evidence behind those lamps. The light therapy studies use a bright light for about half an hour, as soon after waking as possible. It doesn't have to be blinding, it has to be bright, and it has to be early. The sooner after he's up, the stronger the pull. And then the second half of the reset, the same wake up every day. I know, weekends, but a clock that gets dragged 2 hours later every Saturday and Sunday spends Monday and Tuesday paying it back. The anchor isn't bedtime. Bedtime drifts. The anchor is wake up. You cannot force the front end of sleep. You have tried. It does not work. But you can set the back end, the morning, and let the clock follow it. Fix the morning and the night slowly moves to meet you. So where does that leave the mom on the floor of the hallway, phone in hand, cart full of things that might not work? Here's the whole thing in one breath. Your ADHD child is not refusing to sleep. His body clock is set later, the same 30% gap running after dark, and no amount of consistency and nothing in the midnight shopping cart will discipline a clock into keeping someone else's time. So you stop fighting the front end and start moving the timer. Let's recap. The clock runs late by design, not defiance. Melatonin is a signal, not a sedative. Small, early, measured dose, and only with your doctor. The three rogues, the legs, the light, and the medication, all quiet, all fixable. The midnight marketplace, the blanket's possibility, the wrap is a maybe, and the gummy is the least trustworthy way to give the one thing that helps. In the morning, bright light and a fixed wake-up are the levers that move the night. Which brings me back to a boy who hasn't napped since he was 9 months old. He's a teenager now, and most nights in our house, the light under the door goes out at a reasonable hour, not because we finally found the right product, because we stopped fighting his clock and started moving it. I know you've been on that 2 a.m. doom scroll, searching for the miracle cure to finally get some sleep. I've been there. I've bought the gadgets, the oils, and the expensive wraps that did absolutely nothing. In the comments, tell me, what is the single most expensive sleep fix you've ever bought that was a total waste of money? Let's save each other some sanity and cash. Everything here is for informational purposes only, and it isn't a substitute for care from your own child's doctor, especially anything you give them, and especially the dose. But you already knew that.